I woke up to find my wife, Victoria, had turned back into a pure and innocent college girl. She denied our relationship and even wanted to go find her one true love. I pinned her down and carried her back to the bedroom without hesitation. "Don't be in such a hurry to leave, gorgeous," I teased. "I need to test out this new version of you." Victoria slapped me so hard that I fell off the bed. What followed was her exclamation, "Sincere, what did you do to me?" I got up, rubbing my back, still in disbelief at the sight before me. Victoria looked radiant, as if she'd suddenly turned 10 years younger. Was she some kind of spirit, draining the vitality of men? Panicked, I touched my own face to check. Thankfully, everything seemed normal. She hadn't sucked me dry. It must have been my imagination. Ignoring her, I lifted the blanket and climbed back onto the bed. Just as I was about to get started again, she grabbed my ankle with lightning speed. "You were at it all night yesterday," Victoria complained. "Can't you let me rest for a bit?" "Of course not," I replied. She pushed me away as I tried to kiss her, glaring at me and gritting her teeth. "You've ruined my purity. I'll take you down with me." I grabbed her wrist in response. Her skin was so soft that it felt like it might burst into tears under pressure. After examining her closely, I came to a wildly unscientific conclusion. The Victoria lying in my bed had somehow become younger, transformed into a stunningly beautiful college girl in the prime of her youth. What's more, she remembered nothing from the past few years. I never thought I'd live to witness such a bizarre time travel-like event. Victoria was 5 years older than me. How was she suddenly younger than me after just one night? Victoria sat on the bed wrapped in a blanket, looking like a respectable housewife who'd just been harassed. I pulled some clothes out of the closet and handed them to her. "Put these on first," I said. Victoria took the clothes with a glare, hiding under the blanket as she put them on. She looked at me as though I were some notorious villain. After getting dressed, her expression hadn't improved. Rolling her eyes, she asked, "How did we end up sleeping together? And what about those marks on your body?" Her gaze landed on me, her voice trailing off. I looked down at myself, noticing the scratches all over. Last night, I'd been like a chef flipping ingredients in a pan, stirring things up repeatedly. Who would have thought I'd wake up to realize I'd cooked the wrong dish? I casually replied, "Because we're together now." Victoria's eyes widened in disbelief. Her immediate reaction was denial. "Impossible, I'm in love with Oliver." I shrugged. "But the truth is, we're together now." Then I dropped another bombshell. "By the way, Oliver is already married." Oliver, my older brother, had married a blonde-haired, blue-eyed model 5 years ago. Since then, they'd been traveling the world together. At the wedding, Victoria had forced a smile the entire time, which was heartbreaking to see. Later, she drank heavily, mistook me for someone else, and clung to my neck, kissing me non-stop. It was tragic, but at that moment my heart skipped a beat. I couldn't explain it. It must have been love at first sight. Unable to bear her sadness, I impulsively pulled her into bed. Looking back, I'd taken advantage of her vulnerability. For 5 years we'd been entangled, and finally, we were together. Whether it was love or just habit, I couldn't say for sure. I knew she saw me as a stand-in, but I didn't care. A forcibly plucked fruit might not be sweet, but as long as it's in your mouth, who cares? Besides, Victoria was sweet enough and refreshing. Eventually, she let go of the past and settled down with me. We bought a house, adopted a cat, and would take trips together during vacations. Because she was older than me, my parents initially disapproved of our relationship, but they eventually accepted it. Life seemed stable and happy until this unexpected twist. The Victoria before me now, with her youthful innocence, had a completely different temperament. After hearing my words, her fresh and lovely face turned pale. Her lips quivered and she finally burst into tears, accusing me. "You're lying to me, aren't you?" Her tear-streaked face was oddly captivating. I pulled out my phone, swiped a few times, and showed her a picture, Oliver's wedding photo. He was smiling brightly, holding his bride close. It was clear he truly loved her. Victoria was silent, burying herself under the blanket. I patted her head, her soft, fluffy bun of hair feeling adorable under my hand. This was the first time I'd seen Victoria with a bun hairstyle. Sullenly, she asked, "Then what's going on between us?" I replied with feigned ease, We fell for each other while sleeping together. That wasn't entirely true. I'd made a lot of effort too. But I wouldn't tell this young girl that, lest she laugh at me. The alarm on my phone went off, and I didn't have time to keep arguing with her. I went to the bathroom, brushed my teeth, and got dressed before driving to the office. Even during the meeting, my thoughts kept drifting to Victoria. Where had the 32-year-old Victoria gone? Had she traveled back in time? If she did, would she try to stop Oliver's wedding? It wasn't until my assistant gently nudged me that I snapped back to reality. The pen in my hand had been dismantled into pieces. I maintained my composure as I ended the meeting, then took out my phone to check it again. Before leaving, I handed Victoria a spare phone and told her to message me if anything came up. The entire morning passed, and there wasn't a single message from that girl. Worried, I took the initiative to text her. "Have you eaten? Don't forget to feed the big orange cat." But still, there was no response. This uneasy feeling reminded me of the first 2 years we were together. Victoria was always so aloof, responding to me only when she felt like it. Frustrated, I called her directly. On the other end, I heard Victoria's young and frantic voice. She choked up and said, "Sincere, we're married." I was stunned, unable to process her words until she sent me a photo. Raising an eyebrow, I remembered 2 years ago during a trip abroad, we had too much to drink and stumbled upon a couple taking wedding photos. In our drunken haze, we ended up getting a marriage license ourselves. It had been so long that I'd nearly forgotten about it. I tried to comfort her, saying, "It's no big deal. It was abroad, just for fun." But Victoria wouldn't listen and continued yelling over the phone, "How could you treat a marriage license as a joke? You guys are way too casual." Her shouting gave me a headache, so I hung up. Normally, she always carried herself with an air of elegance and composure. How could she have been so chaotic 10 years ago? It annoyed me to no end. Whenever I got irritated, I lost my appetite. After the drama that morning, I felt completely drained and decided to nap in the lounge. Just as I was about to drift off, a phone started ringing in the drawer. I opened it and found Victoria's phone. Answering the call, a cheerful male voice told me the watch Victoria had ordered had arrived. Curious, I opened her chat history and saw that she'd ordered the watch 2 weeks ago. It was a flashy, over-the-top model released last year, ridiculously expensive. The only notable detail was its release date. It coincided with Oliver's birthday. Thoughtful of her. Oliver loved extravagant, shiny, and pricey things. I paid off the remaining balance and returned to the lounge, but I couldn't sleep. Lying there, I closed my eyes and started counting sheep, which eventually turned into counting Victoria. 32 minus 10, definitely not worth it. After work, I drove to a monastery in the outskirts, recommended by a friend who had praised the wisdom of the masters there. The monk was indeed enigmatic, speaking only of fate, not money. I paid 30,000 for fate, and he gifted me a cryptic phrase, "Everything happens for a reason. Wait patiently for the right moment." When I tried to probe further, he said it depended on fate. This whole ordeal felt like a quicker way to make money than outright scams. With Victoria acting out like this, I decided to take over her projects as well. It was year-end, and everything was piling up. I was so overworked that my face turned pale and my eyes dull. Meanwhile, Victoria was glowing and radiant. To avoid any gossip, she moved to the guest room, fearful that I'd take advantage of her. After 2 days of this, on the third night, I couldn't bear it anymore. I waited until she was asleep, removed the lock on the guest room door, and brazenly lay down next to her. This wasn't me being indecent. I simply couldn't sleep well without someone beside me. Only with Victoria next to me could I rest peacefully. Predictably, the next morning, Victoria woke up and shoved me off the bed. She locked the door again. I removed the lock again. This cycle repeated for half a month until Victoria finally gave in, no longer resisting. Driving home from work one evening, the city had its first snowfall of the year. When I arrived home, Victoria was already asleep, sprawled out carefree. Standing by the bed, I couldn't help but marvel at how youthful she looked. Her delicate face reminded me of a peeled, boiled egg, smooth to the touch. I couldn't resist pinching her cheek, but she didn't stir. Emboldened, I playfully pinched her nose. This time she reacted, her lips slightly parted, and her warm breath kissed my palm. Feeling awkward, I withdrew my hand. She was like a sleeping pig, completely unresponsive. The tingling sensation lingered in my palm, and a thought crossed my mind. What's the difference between 22-year-old Victoria and 32-year-old Victoria? Intrigued, I suddenly sat up and lifted the blanket. Her silk nightgown clung to her snow-white skin, and her slightly parted eyes revealed traces of lingering dreams. The soft fabric of her gown was easy to explore. Satisfied, I retracted my hand, only to meet Victoria's furious, flushed face. No joke, she almost killed me. The room was a mess, with shattered decor everywhere. Victoria bit down on my arm, her eyes blazing like fire. "Sincere, do you have no shame? You absolute jerk, I must have been blind to marry someone like you." Her insults ignited my own anger. "I was just looking. No need to blow it out of proportion. It's not like you'll lose a piece of flesh from me glancing at you." I grabbed her and placed her across my lap, spanking her with a crisp slap. Victoria let out a soft gasp, her reddened cheeks turning to look at me. I followed up with another smack, and this time the sound changed. Smirking, I thought to myself, after all this time together, I know exactly what she likes. I pinched her cheek and asked, "Still want to insult me?" Her lips pressed tightly together. Her face flushed deep red, clearly still processing what had just happened. I gave her a few more spanks, and finally Victoria let out some embarrassed sounds. "Don't touch me," she muttered shakily. The fierce 32-year-old Victoria had seen it all, but the 22-year-old Victoria could only plead for mercy. After a night of playful scolding, she eventually calmed down. When I finished showering and climbed into bed, Victoria stood with her back to me, puffed up like an annoyed pufferfish. I deliberately teased her. "What's the matter? Still not convinced?" She froze for a moment and then turned to glare at me. Struggling to find the right words, she finally asked, "Do you always act like this? I mean, with her, do you treat that other Victoria the same way?" I stifled a laugh and pretended to look serious. "Of course, sometimes if I go easy, you don't even like it." Victoria's eyes widened in shock, completely taken in by my answer. After a moment, she managed to stammer, "She's her and I'm me." "So how does it feel?" I asked. Her face turned bright red and she ended up covering it with a pillow. "Shut up," she mumbled from behind the pillow. Watching her innocent reaction, I couldn't help but laugh. Teasing her was unexpectedly entertaining. To finish my current project as quickly as possible, I had canceled all the social engagements I could. But tonight's event was unavoidable, a grand engagement party for the eldest son of the White family. In this city, no one dared ignore the Whites. If Victoria had been around, she could have gone in my place. I didn't have much of a relationship with the White family's eldest son, but I did have history with his sister. Back in college, Fiona was the beauty of our department, and we dated for 2 months before breaking up. Since then, she'd been openly hostile toward me. I wasn't exactly eager to seek out her company either, so I avoided events where she might appear. But with an important business collaboration lined up with the White family next year, skipping tonight wasn't an option. Looking at the invitation my assistant handed me, I sighed. Fine, I'd just avoid Fiona as best as I could. But of course, nothing ever goes as planned. No matter where I went in the massive banquet hall, I kept running into Fiona. Her gaze was cold and intense, making my back tingle uncomfortably. Even my friends noticed something was off, their eyes darting between me and Fiona. Annoyed by the scrutiny, I stepped outside to get some fresh air. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and when I pulled it out, I saw Victoria was calling. As soon as I answered, she launched into a flurry of complaints. "Sincere, do you even know what time it is? Why aren't you home yet? Where are you? Why didn't you call ahead? Can't you act like a married man for once?" Her endless barrage of questions caught me off guard. We'd both been so busy that we rarely checked in with each other. In nearly 30 years of life, I had never been grilled like this. I cleared my throat, about to respond, when my phone was snatched out of my hand. Fiona held it up, her voice dripping with honey as she said, "Oh, sorry, He's busy catching up with an old flame right now. Crap. I could already imagine Victoria fuming on the other end of the line. The chilly night air cleared my head a bit. Fiona's perfectly done makeup was slightly disturbed by a stray lock of hair blown across her face, adding a touch of unintentional charm. She was undeniably beautiful. Why else would I have pursued her back in the day? After a moment of silence, Fiona broke it with a sharp question. Sincere, don't you think you owe me an explanation for what happened back then? You cheated on me, didn't you? It was Victoria, wasn't it? You broke up with me because of her, didn't you? What on earth? I was completely baffled. When Fiona and I dated, I had just started college. How could I have known Victoria back then? My memories of that time felt hazy, like looking through frosted glass. I only recalled that the breakup hadn't been pleasant. The rest was a blur. Fiona huffed, "You're unbelievable, Sincere, completely heartless." With that, she turned and walked away. I watched her retreating figure, feeling utterly bewildered. Fiona didn't show up again for the rest of the evening. When the party finally ended, I slumped into the back seat of my assistant's car, a dull headache setting in. We hadn't driven far when my assistant slowed down, sounding uncertain. "Mr. Sincere, I think that's Miss Victoria up ahead." I opened my eyes and looked out the window. Sure enough, there was a tall figure by the roadside, repeatedly trying to make a call. Pulling out my phone, I realized it had shut down. I quickly got out, brought her into the car, turned up the heat, and wrapped her in a blanket. Victoria's nose and ears were red from the cold. She didn't even glance at me. I apologized first. "Sorry, my phone died earlier. Don't be mad." "I'm not mad," she retorted, puffing up indignantly. "I was just worried you might be sneaking around with someone else." She looked so adorably upset that I couldn't resist pinching her cheek. Okay. Next time I'll make sure to let you know in advance. Deal?" Victoria ignored me. But when we opened the door to our home, I froze. The house was filled with the unmistakable smell of burnt food. What the hell? My shoes were still on as I rushed in, panicked. Was there a fire? No. Sitting on the dining table was a bizarre assortment of dishes that looked like they'd survived a lightning strike. Under the fairy lights, they gleamed with an otherworldly, iridescent black. "Victoria, did the cat throw up on the table?" I asked. She shot me a glare. "What are you talking about? I spent the whole day cooking this." She picked up a long, charred piece of eggplant and held it to my mouth, her expression awkward but determined. "I was feeling generous and didn't want you to miss out on a romantic dinner cooked by your wife on this special day." I pushed it away, grimacing. "What special day? Why the candlelit dinner?" Her eyes widened in disbelief. "You don't remember? Today is your wedding anniversary. You don't remember?" I shook my head, and Victoria looked even more surprised. She asked, "You don't even remember such an important day? What about your 100th, 200th, or 10th day milestones together? Did you ever celebrate those? What is this all about?" It suddenly dawned on me. Victoria did have a habit of randomly dressing up in special outfits to grab my attention, only stopping when I immersed myself in overtime work. Around this time last year, the company had been busy with an acquisition. One day, Victoria asked me when I'd be home because she had cooked dinner. I told her to pack it up and bring it to the office to share with my colleagues. No wonder she ignored me for days after that. Frowning, I said, "Those kinds of things are for young couples. We're an old married couple now." Victoria spun around angrily, biting her lip. "Who says old married couples can't do those things? Don't stereotype us, Sincere. You're so unromantic." She stormed off to the bedroom, leaving me with one final furious remark. "You're not allowed to sleep in the same bed as me tonight." That night, I lay in the guest room, unable to sleep. Whenever I closed my eyes, memories of my life with Victoria flooded my mind. Had I really done so poorly by her? Suddenly, a muffled thud outside startled me out of my thoughts. I opened the door to find Victoria sitting on the floor, her cheeks flushed and her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I touched her forehead. It was burning hot. I carried her to the bed and fetched some fever medicine. She was uncooperative, spitting out the pills and mumbling, "I don't need you. Go find someone else. If you don't want me to take care of you, why are you sitting by my door?" I teased while trying to coax the medicine into her. "I'm not going anywhere. Just you. Only you. I promise." After I reassured her 3 or 4 times, she finally swallowed the pill, though she grimaced and whined, "It's so bitter. Why can't they make it taste better?" I thought about her at 32 years old, how she'd still frown when taking medicine but never complain. Was her childishness now because she was 22, or had she always been this way? After finishing the medicine, Victoria closed her eyes. I got up to look for a thermometer, but the moment I moved, she opened her eyes warily. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Nowhere," I said, patting her gently. "I'm staying right here with you." Satisfied, Victoria hummed softly and said, "Sing me a song." I pinched her cheek and teased, "You need someone to sing you to sleep? I'm not your dad." Victoria retorted, "You're not my dad. You're my future husband. It's your duty to sing for me." When I didn't respond, her eyes reddened and she turned away, mumbling, "I knew it. You don't love her. You're just after her body." I was speechless. Left with no other choice, I sang the national anthem twice. Only then did she finally look content. While she was sick, Victoria acted like a pampered princess. She refused to eat the meals the housekeeper made or any takeout, insisting that I cook for her instead. I opened the fridge, and all I could find was a packet of noodles and 2 eggs. That would have to do, as it was the only dish I knew how to make. When I brought the bowl to the table, Victoria stared at it and said mournfully, "I hate eggs, and scallions, and garlic." I offered to make another bowl, but she stopped me, saying pitifully, "Never mind, I'll make do this time, but you better remember next time." She ate while sighing dramatically. I knew it. Those who aren't loved don't even have the right to complain. Unable to bear it, I went back to the kitchen to make her another bowl without eggs, scallions, or garlic. Finally, she brightened up and ate with a smug expression. She was harder to please than my most demanding clients. After wrapping up a few projects at work, I decided to give the team an early holiday. With some free days on my hands, I thought about taking Victoria on a trip. While scrolling through my phone, I asked her, "How about a few days on an island?" Victoria walked over, fresh from yoga, her skin glowing and her figure accentuated by her workout clothes. Watching her, I felt a flicker of heat. A sunny beach getaway with her suddenly seemed even more appealing. She wrinkled her nose in disgust. "Seriously, Uncle? Wipe that creepy grin off your face. Your thoughts are written all over it." I rolled my eyes. "Why do you care what I'm thinking?" Victoria looked at me seriously and said, "You're not allowed to think. Thinking is forbidden. Even thinking is a crime. My body is reserved for my future husband." I raised an eyebrow. "Then I wonder who it was last night." "Shameless," she shouted, rushing over to cover my mouth. I collapsed onto the sofa, laughing. Girls her age were so easy to tease. As I debated which island to visit, my mom called. "Sincere, Oliver is coming home tonight. Why don't you bring Victoria over for dinner?" The call was on speaker, and Victoria's expression momentarily shifted, betraying a trace of unease. Sure enough, 22-year-old Victoria still had her mind on Oliver. After hanging up, I looked at her dazed face and asked, "Do you want to go? If not, I'll let my mom know." Victoria immediately straightened up, pretending to be indifferent. "I'll go." Her acting wasn't nearly as convincing as it would be years later. It was easy to tell she was trying to disguise herself. Victoria took a shower and then rushed back to her room to change clothes. She rummaged through the closet, trying on outfits over and over again. Leaning against the doorframe, I watched her with an expectant look on her face and felt my throat dry up. I wanted to smoke to calm myself down. I reached for my pack of cigarettes, but ultimately resisted the urge. On the way back, I reminded Victoria of a few things to avoid slipping up. After all, the whole time-traveling business was still hard to believe. Finally, I said to her, "Talk less, eat more, and don't engage with my dad. Remember, he's already mad at me because of our age gap, nearly 5 years. When he found out, he was furious and threatened to disown me. My parents don't just think I have issues, they also believe you're not a proper woman. And don't even get me started on how we've been so focused on our careers that we haven't even had kids." Victoria listened to my reminders, looking visibly uneasy. She asked, "Should we buy some gifts?" I thought of Oliver's watch and shook my head. No need. We already sent something. Even though Victoria had tried to dress herself more maturely before we left, my mom couldn't help but exclaim when she saw her. "Victoria, did you get some cosmetic surgery? You look so much younger." My mom's reaction drew my dad and Oliver over. My dad glanced at me and let out a heavy snort. "You've aged quite a bit, haven't you?" Classic dad, always blunt. Victoria tried to greet my family naturally. She said, "Hello, Oliver. Hello, Mom and Dad. I'm Victoria, and I just turned." I quickly pinched her waist and cut her off. "You used to call them aunt and uncle," I reminded her. My parents paused, their smiles deepening. "It's fine," they said. "You can call us Mom and Dad, too." Looking innocent, Victoria replied, "We're married now, so I should change what I call you." Speechless, I glanced at the living room and casually asked, "Where's Anna? She didn't come back with you?" The air grew quiet for a moment. My parents' smiles faded, replaced with an awkward stillness. Finally, Oliver broke the silence and said, "We're divorced. I'm single again now." At dinner, Oliver tried his best to keep the mood light, but my parents were clearly down. One son in a child-free age gap relationship, another freshly divorced life felt bleak to them. Mom put some food on my plate, sighing as she said, "Sincere, Victoria, if you two are too busy to raise a child yourselves, you could have one and let us help out. Or maybe you could adopt. That way we'll have someone to keep us company in our old age." I changed the subject quickly. "Mom, our company is on holiday break. How about I take you and Dad on a trip?" My mom's eyes lit up. "That sounds great. It's been so long since we went on a family trip." Oliver chimed in, offering suggestions, and we eventually decided on a sunny island destination in the southern hemisphere. After dinner, I took Victoria out for a walk. She seemed preoccupied, so I took the opportunity to grab her by the back of her neck. "What's on your mind? You almost ran into that tree," I said. Victoria didn't dodge and instead asked, "Did you ever think about having kids with her?" So that's what she was pondering. My mom had mentioned it a few times before, but neither Victoria nor I took it seriously. Raising a cat was already a handful, raising a kid would be even more. "I haven't decided," I replied. "Besides, why are you a kid yourself even bringing this up?" Victoria protested. "I'm not a kid anymore, and she and I are both Victoria after all." I chuckled and teased, "Didn't you say before that you were you and she was her?" Victoria didn't laugh. Her gaze held an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. We fell into a strange tension that didn't ease even after arriving on the island. I couldn't figure out what was going on in Victoria's 22-year-old mind or why she seemed to be at odds with me. At least my parents were enjoying themselves. The island was bright and beautiful, with stunning scenery. I accompanied them to several landmarks, snapping countless photos. That evening, Mom pulled me aside to help her choose which pictures to post online. After half an hour of deliberation, she was finally satisfied and uploaded them. Victoria said she needed to go out for something and left. Standing on the balcony, I smoked while the ocean breeze brushed against my face. The beach at night was stunning, with the lively buzz of a nearby street filled with bars. Feeling impulsive, I wandered into a small bar, ordered a drink, and watched the band perform. They were playing an old, soulful song like a lover's whisper. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted two figures. In that instant, my blood froze. At the corner of the bar, sitting at the counter, was my oblivious brother Oliver, clearly drunk out of his mind. And right beside him, Victoria, leaning in close. A snapping sound echoed in my brain as if a string had broken. Somehow I managed to stay calm enough to drag Victoria out of the bar. I hauled her into the alley behind it, my voice sharp as I demanded, "What the hell are you doing?" Victoria seemed dazed, her whole demeanor off. Pinning her against the wall, I gritted my teeth and said, "Answer me." Finally, Victoria snapped back to reality, her eyes shimmering with tears. "Why are you so mean to me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You just can't forget my brother, can you?" I accused. "Seeing him divorced, you thought you'd have another chance, didn't you?" Without warning, Victoria's tears spilled over. She choked out, "What kind of person do you think I am? Do you think everyone's as heartless as you? Treating marriage as a game? Not a chance." I would only ever marry someone I truly love. My hands were trembling slightly as Victoria sobbed even harder. She said, "You're not thoughtful or gentle, you just want to sleep with her. You've never really treated her as your wife. And by the way, I was just glancing at Oliver's watch. It clearly has your name engraved on it." The warm evening breeze swept through the dim alleyway as Victoria cried so much it seemed she might dehydrate. Feeling a little helpless, I patted her shoulder and said, all right. I shouldn't have been so harsh on you. Don't cry anymore." I knew I was overly sensitive about Victoria's relationship with Oliver, but I couldn't let go of something I'd heard before. It lingered. With teary eyes, Victoria looked at me and said, "You need to make it up to me." I sighed and asked, "What do you want?" But before I could finish, she stood on her tiptoes and planted a searing kiss on my lips, salty with tears. She then grabbed my hand and pressed it to her chest. "Do you feel it?" she asked. "It's beating so fast. Sincere, I've fallen for you." In the distance, the sound of ocean waves echoed faintly. Beneath my palm, her heartbeat was strong and alive. Before me stood a 32-year-old Victoria, not the young girl I once knew. Later, I returned to the hotel with Victoria trailing behind me. She kept pestering me. "Sincere, why do you look a bit disappointed? Aren't you happy to see me? Why don't you give me a kiss? If both of us fell into the ocean, who would you save?" So annoying. Was excessive chatter a side effect of time travel? Back in the room, Victoria's eyes lit up when she saw the ring on my finger. "Sincere," she said happily. "You never gave me a ring when we got married." Instinctively, I replied, "We're an old married couple." I paused and asked, "What kind of ring do you want?" Victoria beamed even brighter. "Just get me one like yours," she said. I had no idea what she was so happy about. I went to the bathroom, but just as I pulled my pants down, Victoria barged in. I hastily pulled them back up, exasperated. She hooked her arms around my neck and whispered in my ear, "Who do you like more, her or me?" She was about to drive me insane. All I could do was repeatedly say, "You, I like you." For the next few days, I didn't even manage to leave the hotel. When my mom saw Victoria, she exclaimed, "Victoria, you look like you've aged a few years." Victoria's expression stiffened as she explained, "Mom, it's probably because the island sun is so harsh." My mom nodded. "True, the sun is strong. But Victoria, you're so beautiful. You just get better with age." Victoria brightened up again, looping her arm through my mom's. "You've always had great taste," she said. Then she turned to me and asked, "Sincere, what do you think?" I reflexively replied, "You're beautiful, the most beautiful." Victoria smiled, pleased. "Correct, you deserve a reward," she said. "I've changed our flight tickets so we can stay here a few more days." I was taken aback. "Why stay longer?" I asked. Victoria leaned in close and whispered, "Don't you want to try something on the beach?" The warm sea breeze blew in, flipping a page of the old book on the windowsill. Victoria's perspective. "I used to have a crush on Oliver. We grew up together, but I never told him. Later, when Oliver got married, I drank too much and had an unexpected encounter with his younger brother, Sincere. I wasn't drunk out of my mind. I knew it was Sincere who made the first move. At the time, I hated him, and I hated myself even more. I despised how indecisive I was. I clearly liked Oliver, yet my body was so drawn to Sincere. I blamed it all on him. My attitude toward Sincere was horrible. The worst fight we ever had was when I spitefully told him he was just a stand-in. Sincere just stared at me, dumbfounded. The look in his eyes was like a dagger. To this day, whenever I think about it, my heart aches like it's being pierced. Sincere never blamed me for it. Back then, I thought he was madly in love with me. But later, I began to notice something was off. On Sincere's left hand, he wore a cheap ring, something that looked like it came from a dollar store, like those matching rings teenagers give each other. Over time, the silver coating had dulled, but he never took it off. I tried to ask him about it, even went so far as to ask Oliver, but no one knew where that ring came from. Sincere would just brush it off, saying he didn't remember. Did he think I was a child, that I'd believe such a flimsy excuse? When you fall for someone, you can't help but notice every little thing about them. Eventually, I realized that when Sincere looked at me, It was as if he was looking at someone else through me. There was another woman in his heart, someone who probably looked a lot like me. To figure it out, I even hired a private investigator. I wanted to know who Sincere's mystery woman was, but those detectives were useless. They dug up everything from the color of Sincere's childhood underwear to his high school crushes, but they couldn't uncover who this woman was. Looking at myself in the mirror, with my rare and stunning beauty, I could only come to one conclusion. It was awkward to say, but after much hesitation, I finally mustered the courage to ask, "Dad, do you have an illegitimate daughter out there?" That day, our house was in chaos. My mom nearly killed my dad, and my dad almost killed me. Maybe Sincere had experienced a profound love before I ever came into his life. But whenever I looked at him, I doubt that theory. When Sincere looked at me, it felt like he was looking at someone else entirely. I can feel genuine love, words might lie, but eyes never do. Just one look into those eyes, and I tell myself, it's all in the past. Maybe that vixen has already disappeared from my life. On my 32nd birthday, Sincere asked me to make a birthday wish. I thought about it for a long time and wished for a fresh start with him. If only I had fallen for him earlier, I wouldn't have done those hurtful things or said those cruel words. But fate played a joke on me. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself at a college graduation party. The private room was filled with classmates, drunk and slumped over the furniture. Sitting beside me was a much younger Oliver, 10 years younger to be exact. I shook Oliver awake and asked him where Sincere was. Half asleep, he mumbled an address before passing out again. Thank goodness he wasn't fully awake, otherwise he'd have noticed that I had aged a decade overnight. Following Oliver's directions, I went to the address. My hands trembled as I knocked on the door, and they shook even more when the door opened. Standing inside was Fiona. Keeping my composure, I asked calmly, "Does Sincere live here?" Fiona frowned and responded, "Why are you looking for my boyfriend?" I pushed past her and barged in, only to see an 18-year-old Sincere sitting at his desk, staring at me in surprise. Fiona stormed after me but froze when she saw me. "Why are you crying?" she asked. Wiping my tears, I turned to Sincere and said, "Sincere, I need to talk to you." Rolling her eyes, Fiona scoffed, "Lady, you look like you're 30. What's your deal?" This vixen was so noisy. Whatever. I decided to settle in the city where Sincere lived. After all, I came from 10 years in the future, and I knew the market trends like the back of my hand. Sincere started his entrepreneurial journey during college, so I planned to get a head start on him. This way I would have an excuse to meet him later. As for Fiona, that drama queen broke up with him at least 800 times a day. It was only a matter of time before Sincere got tired of her. Sure enough, he couldn't take it anymore and ended things with her. Fiona didn't take it seriously, packed her things, and left, expecting him to beg for her return. I watched from the doorway, feeling triumphant, but then I realized something. Sincere's ring finger was still bare, which meant Fiona wasn't his one true love. This made me even more cautious. I started sticking by Sincere's side, almost like his shadow. He must have noticed something because, one night after an event, he asked me tipsy and slurring his words if I had feelings for him. I decided it was now or never. I must seize this chance. Summoning all my courage, I gave him a heartfelt confession. After 3 minutes of silence, I heard him snoring. Seriously? Throwing pearls before swine, I helped the drunken Sincere home, only to see a message from Fiona waiting for him. She said, "I left something at your place. I'll swing by tonight to pick it up." What a classic move, playing hard to get. I decided to play along. I stripped off my clothes and scattered them around the living room. Then I hid behind the bedroom door. Soon, I heard the front door open. In my sweetest voice, I called out, "Sincere, you're amazing, he. I had heard those words enough times to mimic them perfectly. Fiona never came back after that. I pulled out all the stops and finally won over 18-year-old Sincere. But that elusive one true love never appeared. I lived on edge, constantly fearing what might happen. Until one day, while on a date with Sincere, an idea struck me like lightning during a movie. My heart raced. Excusing myself, I ran downstairs and bought the simplest ring from a street vendor. Rushing back to the theater, I found Sincere at the door, calling me. I handed him the silver ring. It fit perfectly, as if it were made for him. The frantic beating of my heart calmed instantly, so it had been me all along. Sincere raised his hand to examine the ring, his expression puzzled. I stood on tiptoe, kissed him, and said, "If you forget me, promise me this next time you see me, fall in love with me again. 10 years from now, buy me a ring, just like this one,